studying, or everywhere it is used. So what is the benefit? Simply, you just have to lie down, listen to the music, and then get better. That's how it goes. So when we talk about a lot of things, so when we sing, so initially I used to sing, and I learned singing at a very early age. Somehow or the other, like after learning the music, I was not encouraged, or I was not allowed to sing and all that. I used to feel really bad. Why? Then after a few years, there is after about 18 years, I have learned. I still found that I can't go and sing, and I can't do anything. Then I realized one fine day, what is that is making me happy? When I sing to myself, there is a kind of peace that is settling myself. So the music, what I learned, the universe has told me, it is to keep myself balanced and calm. So it's not that I have to go and sing and then show. So that music gives such a lot of satisfaction within me. So that was the learning what I had when I had this kind of a experience. I used to feel really bad in my teenage. Why my family is not encouraging when I'm singing or when I'm listening to music. My father being a person who will sing, I used to feel it bad. I feel it really bad. But then now when I started learning sound healing, initially somebody came and told me, Abhirami, I feel you're a person for sound. I said, like, okay, so what do I do with that? So you just heal. Start healing people. You're into counseling and you can heal people very easily. I said, really? Then I will try doing it. Then I went to, I got guidance from the universe to go and meet a guru, and then I met him. And then he spoke to me quite long, and then he said, like, listen, you don't choose sound. I told him, as we go, it is like something very different. I said, like, okay, I've just thought I will just try this out. He said, like, you have not chosen sound. The sound has chosen you to come here because the sound feels that you can use the sound to heal people. That time I felt like my feeling of my feeling of like the singing what I did is for myself is validated. So whatever I had during the childhood days, like a younger age, when I was not encouraged, or I was not really given importance to sing or anything, I felt like, okay, so this is the purpose. So I used to give my clients something called intuitive music therapy. Suddenly, when somebody is talking and they are blocked and they're not able to talk, and they still feel like something is not coming out. Sometimes, many times, people, they will have issues, but they won't be able to come out and talk to you. So that time, like, why don't I play this raga and then this music, this hymn, so that it becomes easy for them to, come out of it. Many times I've seen the clients come and tell me the stories which they didn't want to tell. Ma'am, I really didn't want to tell, but somehow initially itself I wanted to tell you when I was talking to you, but I was feeling like, how will you take it? But now I feel very confident of talking to you. Similarly, when you talk about the children, because I run a preschool and I have seen so many, so I go and sing to them always. And I will just pass by, and then every classroom I go, and then I'll just sit with them and sing. The kind of joy, and the teachers would come and tell, "Ma'am, we also sing." But then when you sing, we are also becoming children. So it's nice. Because the way we vibrate, whether it is a Baba Black Sheep or any Sini song or a prayer or any sloka, whatever it is, it really gives that kind of discipline. So that gives a kind of control. Like, I've seen children evolve during the prayer time. We used to sing, and then we used to make them sing some specific songs and non-religious, but still, that invokes their inner feeling. Children will be like quietly listening. The children, the naughtiest of all, also will stand, then they'll be quietly listening. So that way, when you see, The naughty child is sometimes branded as, like, oh my God, I cannot handle it. There's some problem with. But now what happens? The child calms down, settles, balances the energies, because we have all this, like as adults itself, we have this difference. As children, they'll have bundle of energy, abundant energy. So that they just do it. And this is how sound healing happens. Sound healing is one thing which is really, really something which people should get into it. And if somebody wants to experience, they can come to me. I can just help them out. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was definitely a very inspiring talk, Abhirami. And, as I was listening to you, I was really sucked into what you were trying to say. And truly so, the teacher appears when the student is ready. And just as it happened with you, it had flown through you. You have this gift, and thank you so much for bringing that to us. And your students must be so lucky, because even before they're matured enough to understand what it really means scientifically and artistically, they are, you are imprinting their subconscious with the value and the love and the frequency of the mind body soul connection. So thank you so much. And it was absolutely a pleasure to have you, to listen to you. And once again, many congratulations on the award that is getting conferred on you. Thank you. Wait for another couple of minutes until all my panelists are on board, and then we'll start the discussion. Hello, Usha. Hello, Ragini. So good to see you. Absolutely a pleasure to have you today. And let us just hold off for another couple of minutes so that we can see if the rest of the panelists would join in, and we would take it from there. However, we have started live streaming, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. Usha, you are on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's amazing to see you.
My pleasure, and definitely looking forward to a very enriching session.
Yeah.
In fact, this is such a topic close to heart. I'm all ears.
Yeah, that's true.
Hi, Swayata. So good to have you. We are already live streaming. So the social media links are on. We are just holding off for the next 1 or 2 minutes to chit chat until the rest of the panelists come on board.
Fantastic. Thank you for having us, Shinjini.
Absolutely my pleasure. And it's my privilege to see all of you together. And I was talking about, how dear this topic is to everybody's heart, especially entrepreneurs.
Indeed, indeed. I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion today.
Absolutely. Hello, Anushka. So good to have you.
Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Pleasure.
Is this working? There we go. Great to see you all.
What time is it, Anushka, there?
It is 8:30 a.m.
Have you had morning coffee?
You know what? I haven't yet, so forgive me for anything I say.
You're always spot on.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Interestingly, now that we have got 2 extra minutes to talk, I just completed moderating another session, which was on a very different topic, which was on handloom and the economic sustenance of the artisans, as well as the ecological balance and sensibility and sensitivity around the product, and handloom versus powerloom. And we had Bibi Russell, who is, of course, a very big name in the handloom space. She's from Bangladesh. She popularized gamcha, and she was creating, bow ties out of gamcha. And she said that as an entrepreneur, she refuses to write, spend her time writing I'll just quote what she said. She says that, as an artist, as an entrepreneur, I refuse to spend my time and energy writing proposals. So I have put in every last pice I had, because I did not want to get into that space of, getting refused and not being able to do the work I'm meant to do because of whatever it takes to raise funds. And I thought it was very well timed, and it was almost destined, because we were just walking into this session. And we'll talk about a lot of the process and the possibilities of funding.
Indeed, Chinjini. So, Chinjini, one quick check. Would you be introducing the panelist?
No, you are the moderator.
Right, fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I will just start the panel and leave it to you, and then step
All
back.
right.
Yeah.
So guys, you have such extensive accomplished profiles, and I thought you yourself could do best justice. I will definitely do mention your name and where you come from, what you do. But I would give you 2 minutes, as I mentioned in my email, to introduce yourself and like really give a bit of story about why you are here today, what each of you have like really been very, very passionate about this topic. So I really want to bring on that story as to what drives that passion.
Absolutely. Swaita, we are at 7 o'clock. So why don't I just take a minute to welcome you once more, all of you, to this lovely panel on this lovely evening, morning, and different time zones of the world. It is my utmost privilege to be a part of this screen right now. And also in advance, a big congratulations to each one of you, because you will be conferred the award of the Exceptional Leader of Excellence by the Annual Women Economic Forum 2021. So with that happy and celebratory note, I leave the forum and the space to you, Swaita, to take everybody through this lovely discussion. And I'll be waiting on the side, listening to all of you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chinjini. So guys, I'm here to talk about the topic, bridging the funding gap for women entrepreneurs. At a time when women are hitting the bosses and entering the billionaires club, it is definitely a very good time for us to come together and celebrate. From the pioneers like Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, who have shown that nothing can come in the way of their fiery streak, to the more new age unicorn owners like Falguni Nair, we all are aware that women are no less, and new age entrepreneurs like Falguni Nair are bearing the torch of inspiration forward, right? However, on the other side, if we look at the funding numbers, we've seen that year to date this year, the VC funding in the startups have gone up by 4 times. However, the percentage that still goes to women-led startups or women entrepreneurs is abysmally low. So here we are today to talk about the untapped opportunity, the potential, and how to create an equitable ecosystem for our women entrepreneurs, for them to be equally, if not more, successful. So today I have very, very accomplished speakers, all from the investment fraternity. However, all of them bring together very diverse or come from very diverse backgrounds. I have Usha Amin, who runs her own VC fund. She has co-founded the same. I have Ragini, who is the investment director at a Caspian Debt. And I have Anushka, who heads the Gender Lens Finance globally for HSBC. Today, Anushka is joining us from the US. So with such diverse experience, I'm sure we are going to look forward to what these speakers have to say today. But before I do pass on to them to talk a bit more about themselves and why they are so passionate about this topic, I would like to tell you that, I have personally spoken to each one of them, and I was amazed by their backgrounds, history, story, and, the things that bring them here today jointly to discuss this topic. They all come with some kind of background and history and why they are today and why they're so passionately involved with this agenda. So with that, Anushka, can I pass on to you to start with your introduction?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Shweta, and thank you everybody for having me today. Really thrilled to be talking about this topic. As Shweta kindly mentioned, so I run HSBC's Gender Lens Finance initiative, and why I'm passionate about this topic, I think, is the question that you asked, right, Shweta, is that when we started Gender Lens Finance, I was very, very keen to make sure that we were thinking about supporting women as smart business and good business for us to do, right? Women are 50% of the population. They are due to control 70 to 80% of consumer spending. They are going to be an absolute firepower in our economies and our societies, but yet they are underserved in pretty much every aspect of life, right? But specifically in financial markets and in capital. And as a financial institution, I think there's a huge role that we can play to help bridge those gaps and to get more power and funding into the hands of women and women-led businesses. And so, that's kind of what started Gender Lens Finance, and, really thrilled to be able to talk a little bit more about that today. But again, thank you for having me, Shweta, and I'll pass on to the next speaker to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Anushka. Ragini, should we go with you next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shweta. It's honor to be with Usha and Anushka here and with you moderating. So thanks a lot for that. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about my personal story. I'm a middle child of a very middle-class Punjabi family, and only one of the first in that whole generation, me and my sisters, who were given English medium education, And of course, my dad had to really pay bitterly for that from relatives and everything. So I had held that very closely, that, this is an opportunity I have and I want to make best of it. And I went to a college which was serving social entrepreneurs, which is IRMA, which also shaped my thinking and life. And the third thing that really shaped was that my husband had 2 failed startups. So I've seen up close what entrepreneurs go through. And over my work in the investing thing, I thought that if my husband being a male faced so much challenge, one can just imagine what women would face. And as soon as I got an opportunity in my last job to head an education fund and now a debt fund where I lead investments, I thought I found my place to give back, contribute, and use whatever influence I have to improve equitable funding for women, and entrepreneurs in general, be more responsive and, as investors. Yeah, so that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragini. Great to know your story. Usha, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shweta, for having us here. And thank you, Anushka and Ragini. Absolutely great to hear your stories as well. So I'm from Bangalore, and I'm a CA by profession. And after finishing my education, of course, worked with a manufacturing company, and then went on to become a CFO for an IT company. And from there, started on with an entrepreneurship with my husband. And of course, events happen, things change. And as being a woman and handling the finance itself was, I think, one thing where men weren't able to really stand that kind of, a power dynamic, people need men to handle it. And when they feel a bit insecure about a woman handling that. So going through a lot of phases like that, of course, and understanding that what actually transpires in the financial industry. Started off with the fund, the Saha Fund for Women Entrepreneurship and Technology. And it's been a great journey. We've invested in 10 women entrepreneurs, and their stories have been absolutely mind-boggling, because one of them, like we heard before we funded them, was they went to 83 investors and have pitched to them. And there were questions like, after getting married, how are you going to manage the business? And, some questions like that. So I think it's been a lot of change from then on, almost 6 years now. And we've seen a lot of change in the industry. And thanks to the women in the industry who made that change happen. And of course, you've got a long way to go. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Usha. And I would completely agree. We do see a lot of change. I see that entrepreneurs these days, women entrepreneurs in particular, are very different from the previous generation. They are so much more ambitious, confident, and passionate about their ideas. So Anushka, could I ask you, if they are so confident and passionate, then what is stopping them from becoming entrepreneurial leaders?
Thanks for the question, Shweta. And I agree with you. I think it's very troubling, right, when you think about the statistics that we still see in the market when we think about female entrepreneurship. I think, Shweta, you mentioned a couple in your introduction there, but some of the statistics still are completely boggling to me. In 2021, the fact that there is still a $1.5 trillion gap for women, small and medium enterprises, and the fact that only 2.3% of venture capital dollars in the US went to women in 2020. And by the way, that number went down from 2.8% the previous year, right? So the thing that's really troubling to me is the fact that we have these a wonderful sort of superpower, if you will, in the world that is, being creative, innovating, but yet the sort of trajectory of where capital is going is actually going in the wrong direction. And I think that is incredibly troubling, right? And we need to ask ourselves why that is the case and how can we solve for it. I think what was interesting was that at HSBC, we actually conducted some research a couple of years ago called She's the Business, where we surveyed 1,200 entrepreneurs to unpack these issues a little bit, right? And to really dig into what is causing these issues and how can we look to support. And sort of, 4 key pieces of that really stand out to me around sort of why women are still perhaps struggling to get access to that capital. So the first one was around access to networks and resources. That was something that we saw is difficult for women. And certainly that was something that was reflected in this study. And I think it's something that is fairly well known, right? That there's an access to capital issue, but an access to resources and networks, right? That kind of help propel and give you that virtuous cycle of being able to access more and grow your business and further what you're doing. The second one that came up was the lack of role models, right? And I suppose it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Where, we need to get more women into those seats, into those prominent seats. And again, Shweta, you mentioned a few fantastic entrepreneurs that have really made a huge success in the last year, 18 months or so. We need to propel those into the limelight so that we can create more role models for female entrepreneurs going forward. The third one that came up was around knowledge and sort of, financial know-how, right? How can we equip female entrepreneurs with the know-how that they need to get access to capital, to get access to networks? Again, perhaps that's something that is, maybe through bias or other reasons not delivered to women in certain markets in the same way. But again, something that, as a financial institution, something that we can certainly help to overcome. And then the final one, which I think is perhaps one of the most pertinent ones, and again, I think Usha and Ragini, you mentioned parts of this in your introductions as well, is around the piece around bias, right? The fact that, for better or worse, there is still a significant amount of bias in the investment processes. When you think about pitching to a group of, venture capitalists or whatever it might be, I do think that there are still issues with the fact that perhaps, around the table, we need maybe a bit more diversity so that they can understand, certain different perspectives and kind of bring different things to the table. And so, I think that's certainly one, again, that we can maybe help to overcome by kind of being more intentional about, who is listening to those pitches, how we're analyzing the pitches, making sure that there are more diverse perspectives around the table when we're making investment decisions as well. But I think, those are sort of 4 components that we really need to be focused on in order to address that access to capital issue, which of course is perhaps one of the most pressing issues when it comes to supporting female entrepreneurs going forward.
Thank you, Anushka, spot on. And I think you did cover all the aspects that would lead us to a better way forward. But I would also like to ask if any of the other panelists, Ragini or Usha, would you have to add anything further to what Anushka has said? All right, looks like.
Yeah. So just, I think I'll cover that a little bit on the ecosystem bit, but I think Anushka, you are spot on the 4 things that you, and especially about the bias and the networks, because I think there is no gender lens around. All networking happens over dinner, over drinks, over, so not many women are able to come, very simple things that there are never breakfast meetings for networking, right? So how do women make it? Yeah.
Right. So Usha, I would move on to you for the next question. We've seen, and I'm sure you, as part of your VC investment process, have seen and cannot deny that the pitching process plays a very, very important role in the decision making as to where do you invest in, which venture do you invest in. So what are some of the tips that you would give our women entrepreneurs to navigate this process successfully? And what has been your experience with women entrepreneurs in this process?
Yes, so I think Anushka has covered quite a bit on that as well. And yeah, spot on with the problems that we see the women entrepreneurs especially facing. So to tell you the story about our own fund, when we went pitching to the LPs for starting this fund, almost about 80 of them turned it down, saying that it's an impact fund and they don't invest in impact. And it is a for-profit fund, of course, but they didn't believe in the story. And I think the biggest problem everyone faced was a good pipeline. So they And yes, of course, we do struggle with a good pipeline, but not anymore. I think now there have been a lot of incubation centers which really help them do that. And they also train them on the pitching process. And I think there is a lot of information available on the net as well for the pitching. But I would tell you from the concept that we as investors really see in the first few minutes, because you don't get much time with the entrepreneurs. And so if the entrepreneur can really explain things really crystal clear in the first 4 to 5 slides, I think we win the audience there. So I look at it in the way that who the organization is. That means they answer the questions of who, what, why, whom, for what, when, where, and with. So basically, the first thing is about what the organization is about, who the organization is, what the purpose is, and what is the product or service about, what does it address, and why has it come into existence, solving what issues, what are the issues currently that they are able to address, and who are the target customers, and when does it start, when do people use it, and when do they start scaling. Those are kind of questions that we look at, that how is going to go on, and when do we get our exit. I think that's the biggest question where we really don't get an answer, is how are we going to get that exit. So what are the plans? Is there a market? Is there going to be a merger, an acquisition, an IPO? So we start looking at those things initially, because the fund life is just about 6 to 7 years, or maximum 8. And we need to really see how it's going to shape up within those times. And with us, the team, I think that's very, very essential, because it all requires a cohesive team to work along with and see whether they all meet the common goal. And the resources, because the resources, we, the team, and where is going to be heading in, say, the first 2-3 years, the financials have to explain whatever explanations and the story that they have built about. And yeah, that's the main thing. Of course, I mean, in the investment language, we have a lot of terms of capital used, allocated, and all those stuff. But I think simplicity way where entrepreneurs can understand is if they have these things very crystal clear, and then it becomes very easy for the investors to make that decision whether they want to go ahead or not. Yeah.
Thank you, Usha. So a very well thought out, well researched, well articulated pitch is very, very important in terms of making the investment decision. So Ragini and Anushka, would you like to add anything further to what Usha has said?
Maybe just one quick point. I think this was perhaps not related to the sort of process there, but a point that really resonated with me that Usha said, though, was the fact that it was viewed as an impact initiative versus a sort of, for-profit business initiative. And I think, that is one point which is incumbent on all of us, right? To keep reminding people that this is good business and smart business to do, right? This is, in fact, people talk about, oh, is this, more risky? Are we increasing risk? In fact, women have shown that they are, better at paying back loans. There are fewer non-performing loans in portfolios that include women-led businesses. And, the returns are certainly something that we can hope that will deliver as well in the long term. But I think, that was just one piece that really resonated with me, and certainly something we hear across the board, right? But I think it's shifting that mindset as well to it being smart, good business to do. This isn't a question of nice to have, we've done a nice thing. This is good, smart business. And I think it's interesting that we sometimes still hear that rhetoric around impact.
Completely agree with Anushka, and Usha, of course, made excellent point about this business case. Actually, there is a whole industry called microfinance which got built just on women paying back. It is on that back of that, So there is a business case which is proven. I don't know how much more data we need to do that. So completely agree with you, Shana.
Yeah, in fact, to add on, the pandemic really proved the resilience of people. And in fact, all the women entrepreneurs that I've seen have done excellently well. They've got so much of great determination and, resilience to go on during this time. In fact, they've done much better than the men also.
Absolutely.
So we had actually banked on men who were actually doing businesses for the women, for empowering women. And in fact, they themselves couldn't survive during this time. So that's a pretty good example. And of course, the IPO of Nykaa.
Of course. Nykaa was the only profitable company to go to IPO with 50% stake left with Falguni. That's like an amazing. What else do you need? None of the companies with the 4 IPOs were profitable. Policy Bazaar, others. I don't want, So yeah, it speaks volumes about how.
Indeed, indeed. And Ragini very rightly pointed out the microfinance industry is such an appropriate example. You've seen the levels of NPAs in the wider industry. And if you compare that to microfinance, you know what you're heading for if you're lending to women entrepreneurs. So we absolutely don't need any further data beyond that. And it's very proven in even the difficult years. And for years, we've consistently seen very low NPAs. So Ragini, I'll go to you with my next question, which is, obviously, women entrepreneurs need to raise their visibility and do their bit to have a successful pitching process. But I think it is also incumbent on the investor community to create a more equitable ecosystem so that women entrepreneurs are successful overall and the biases, etc., are removed. Anushka did allude to that.
Yeah.
So what are your views on that?
No, absolutely, Sweta. And I think it starts from where Usha mentioned about pipeline. So if you see, number of women in colleges, technology, biotechnology has been increasing. So we definitely have a pool of talent there, right? So it's incumbent on incubators who go spot talent. So there are especially women incubators, which is different. But we need incubators who incorporate gender lens in their whole program, whether it is male entrepreneur or female. And when I talk about gender lens, it is about product, how you build the product. Are you missing out on the 50% of who are going to use it in terms of your market research? How many women you have in your companies, on your governance board, because they're diverse views. So that gender lens has to come in, and being, like Anushka said, intentional about getting those number of women in your program and continuing that at the acceleration phase, because the research shows that all the investors will ask promotional questions to men, like how big you will grow, how will you capture the market, and to women they will ask about, okay, what is the downside, when will you break even, and things like that. So accelerator need to prepare women, have a program with a gender lens which tells them how to convert this promotional question to a preventive question to a promotional question. As soon as you go into preventive mode, your wallet size reduces for women or anybody, as soon as you start thinking this. But when we are thinking larger vision, we are willing to put out more money, So the onus is on accelerators to prepare, and also women to be very thorough with numbers. Don't leave it to their chartered accountants or male co-founder. Take it head on. Like Usha said, you need to know your numbers. And coming to investors, I think there is a business case for diversity. So within their own teams, their own processes. But can investors come together and look at this as a problem to be solved? That, okay, our portfolio is not diverse. How is it that we can solve it? So I'm not even telling you that you're biased or you're whatever. I'm saying, let's take this as a problem. Let's look at all the processes, starting from pitching to really evaluating and due diligence, and see what better can we do. Because there's a research which says that if your job description goes out saying ambitious, aggressive, then 5% women will apply. So you're automatically ruling out talent. Similarly, is something in the way you are attracting applications saying that women think that this is not something that they want to be part of? So can you bring that gender lens across and come together to solve a problem? Because diversity has a business case,
Agreed. And Ragini, I don't think it is anymore a moral obligation, right?
Not
it's an untapped opportunity. And the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, you are definitely leaving money on the table if you're not investing in women entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
You are putting a cap on the economic growth of the country if you're not investing in women entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Right. And start with yourself and then bring it to your portfolio companies, is what I would say.
Anushka and Usha, would you like to add anything further to what Ragini has said?
No, I think that's very comprehensive.
Yeah, she's covered almost everything, yes.
Fantastic. So Usha, I'll go to you with my next question. And Anushka did allude to this when she was talking about the initial point where I asked her what needs to be done to get to have more women entrepreneurs or entrepreneur leaders, where one of the points she said that there aren't enough women who are decision makers. So stats and numbers says that only 12% of VC or investment decision makers in VC funds are women in US. And when you look at the emerging market, the numbers are even lower. It's just about 8%. So do you think that that impacts the decision making, and what can we do about that?
Yeah, I think there are very many problems. I think, it's a very complex kind of a system where it's mostly, I would actually boil it down to a change in the mindset, a change in the culture that has been built up over a period of time, the patriarchal systems. We need to really break those systems apart. It's like creating a new systemic formation to help emerge the women entrepreneurship. And I think one of the most important criteria is the support system. So like, for example, I would say that women themselves have to be a great support to the women community, because until and unless that happens, it's going to be very difficult to make any change happen. And women themselves have to take up the lead to make sure that they, if they have, the nuances and the capabilities to really come up and create a kind of an ecosystem which can support other women entrepreneurs to emerge. I think that should be the key. And as Anushka has already mentioned about the minuscule number in the decision-making process, the woman being there in the decision-making process in these industries. So if you look at the financial sector itself, I think the about 8% is what the women employees and management is. So it's so low. And of course, if you look at the total global employment ratios with men and women, it's far, far below. And if you look at India, it's just among the last, and I have not seen this change in the last 6 years. I've just seen that we are still at that bottom level. So women coming up in the forefront and management positions, decision-making positions, I think those are key areas, because they can help other women. I mean, they see it from a different angle. So the bias can be reduced, which we normally see, because it's so male-dominated industry. And it's very, very essential. And finance is a key resource. As long as there is going to be a kind of limitation for growth because of finance, then I think that needs to be addressed foremost. And yeah, like I would say, mindset is a major change, just not for men, but also for women, because I think women have to make that change for the men as well. So like somewhere I was reading that how the men going to manage the empowered women to say, which are emerging now. So I think that also needs to be taken care of. So to educate and, make men understand that what is actually transpiring. And it's not men against the woman or it's a gender bias that we are trying to create, but it's just that there is so much capabilities that we are actually suppressing today and not allowing that to emerge. It's more of that, where there are talents and they don't have opportunities to grow because of certain constraints. And I think we are responsible ourselves to not allow, those constraints to be driven out. So I think there's a whole new role that we as women at the realm of these affairs have to take ownership to make sure that we bring in that change.
Completely agree, Usha. Ragini or Anushka, would you like to add anything further to that?
So I just wanted to say, Usha brings in a very important point about women themselves owning their capacity and capability. And so I just wanted to give one stat, like, in urban areas, unpaid caregiving work done by women is around 3 hours. And that done by men is around 20 minutes. So how is it? Because see, women are there, but our social cultural context is not keeping up with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So where the gender roles within the house and also women thinking that this is just my job, that the shift has to happen both ways. And unless and until one frees up and there is more equity in sort of role development, roles within and outside, you will not be able to achieve your full potential, Yeah. So that's what I would like to add. Yeah. Anushka?
Nothing further to add on that. Very comprehensive again and super interesting.
Indeed. So, Ragini, since you are an investment director at Caspian Debt, let me shift a bit from VC investing to alternate form of investment. It is often believed that raising traditional debt is very, very difficult, especially in early and growth stages of a venture, because obviously there isn't any kind of proven track record, neither is there a cash flow or collateral. However, you can definitely raise debt if you account for that as a part of your overall funding mix, right? So, what would you advise women entrepreneurs on debt funding?
Yeah. So maybe, we feel that it's a gender stereotype or thinking that women manage their business well, but we have enough data now to know that they really manage their businesses well. And startups and entrepreneurs nowadays, what gets celebrated is the funding. Nobody celebrates a profitable business. It's more about, okay, I got this funding and this valuation. So I think women being a little bit, I trust women to be able to see through this and know that best financing is from customers. So if you sell, you ensure that you get the money back from them. And second is get a right funding mix. Look, Falguni had 50% of her stake before she went to IPO, right? She still retained that. And she could do that because she had the right mix of equity and debt, So debt gives you non-dilutive capital. And now banks, of course, would require your profitability, mortgage collateral and others. But there are other non-traditional fintech lenders and Caspian Debt, where investment team is led by women, underwriting team is led by women. That's why last year we did like 46% of our disbursement to women-led businesses. So I think it naturally attracts, because when you see that, so that's the case for diversity right there. And then, so I feel that there is a space for non-dilutive capital, these alternate forms who look at your bank statements, who look at your GST, your governance, they look at your path to profitability, they look at your frugality, because there is no, people get a lot of this thing about cash burn. But we women know that we don't spend more than what we have or what we are likely to have, right? We manage budgets all our life. So I'm not stereotyping, but I'm talking about sensible financial management. And I think there are alternative channels that you can use, which look at not your mortgage collateral, but your business model, its potential, its road to profitability, and values profitability over valuation. All that will follow if you have the right business model. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great to know, Ragini. Anushka, would you like to add anything further?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, just to echo everything Ragini said, I think it's, often when we think about entrepreneurship and we think about startups, we automatically think venture capital and equity, right? Like it's kind of the connection we make. And I remember once being, sort of at a pitch day with female entrepreneurs, and a lot of them said, we don't want equity investors right now, right? Because that obviously takes a piece of the pie away from them, and it obviously inflicts some, sort of restrictions around that as well. And what they want is just, working capital that can actually just help take their business from sort of A to B. And so, that's something for us as sort of stewards of capital to be aware of as well, right? That there are different ways in which we can support, and we need to be open-minded to that as well. But just to complement everything Ragini said, I thought they were really interesting points.
Fantastic. So Anushka, while we have you, financial institutions and especially HSBC is doing a lot in this arena, and you are at the helm of it, leading all the gender lens finance initiatives across the group. So what more can financial institutions and corporates do in general to bridge the financing gap? And also if you would like to elaborate what in particular HSBC is doing around this particular topic.
Sure, thanks for the question, Shweta. Look, I think there is a huge role that corporates and financial institutions can play when you think about the influence that they have outside of their four walls, right? Be that with their customers, their communities, their supply chains, the list goes on, right? The type of impact and ripple effect that these organizations can have globally is significant. I think importantly as well, as the ESG agenda sort of climbs up on sort of corporate and financial institutions lists of, some of the most important and strategic initiatives that they're focused on. The S of ESG, as we know, that social component of ESG has become more prominent as well, right? Especially through the pandemic. And thinking about how you can support women and women-led businesses as part of your business very much forms part of that S of ESG as well, which we think is a really important part to focus on. So I think, Shweta, the second part of your question was around sort of what have we been doing as HSBC, and that, a few things that I think we can point to, which, I think, we've been really pleased to see sort of progress again over the last sort of year, 18 months in particular, where women and girls have been most disproportionately impacted by COVID. So, through Gender Lens Finance, which is the initiative that I run for HSBC, we focus on sort of three key components, if you will. The first is, surprise, surprise, around access to capital, right? As a financial institution, how can we get more capital into the hands of women and women-led businesses? And we've seen this play out in a number of sort of transactions with our clients already. So, be that gender bonds, where the proceeds of that bond are going towards supporting women, small and medium enterprises. We've done the same with some lending transactions as well, again, where we've said that a piece of it needs to go towards supporting women-led businesses. We've partnered with large corporates to deliver payment solutions to support female micro entrepreneurs as well. And we've also done some sort of supply chain solutions as well, right? Working with large corporates and thinking about how you can support minority and female suppliers in their ecosystem. The second piece that we've been sort of focused on is around what we call sort of activist capital, if you will, right? So how can we, as a steward of capital, hold that capital conditional on, the project, the client we're financing, achieving certain, key performance indicators and targets and goals. I think a lot of people have seen this already play out in what's called the sustainability linked market. But what we think has been really interesting is the fact that we can now integrate gender KPIs into those types of things as well, right? So putting in a clause that says women in leadership, if the company meets their women in leadership target of, I'm making up numbers here, going from 40 to 45%, they get a reduction in the price that they pay. And if they don't meet the target, they get an increase in the price that they pay. So, really showing that there's a bottom line implication to not achieving these goals. And certainly those types of KPIs could definitely, I think, be extrapolated in the future to supporting female-led businesses and female entrepreneurs in the ecosystems as well. And then the sort of final pillar that we've been focused on is around products and services. And I think, Ragini, you kind of mentioned applying that gender lens to everything that you do, right? And so this is thinking about how we can support things that, promote gender equality more broadly, right? Thinking about how consumers use products, thinking about healthcare, thinking about education, more topically childcare, without which we are never going to have the full and equal participation of women, right? So, we're thinking about how can we look at every transaction through that lens. What is the gender lens that we can kind of bring to the table? So that's kind of, one piece that we've been doing. And again, so, very pleased to say we've been able to see some, pioneering transactions in that space. I think, finally, I realize I've said a lot here already, but I think very importantly, us being HSBC and being able to support our female customers is incredibly, incredibly important. And, overcoming barriers they face in accessing networks and resources has been a huge focus for us as well. And to do this, we've been running a number of initiatives globally to do this. So, one of them is called HSBC Raw, which we launched in Hong Kong, the US, and the UK, where we're providing coaching, resources, etc., to female entrepreneurs. We've done our Accelerating Women Entrepreneurs in India with Wiki, spearheaded here by Shweta. So I would let her elaborate more on that, of course, but a fantastic program and one that we're very proud of. And in Latin America, we've launched a program called Mujeres al Mundo. So working in Argentina and Uruguay as of now, again, supporting female entrepreneurs and clients in their journey, providing them with access to resources and networks. Again, noticing that we're HSBC, recognizing the power of our community and our networks, and hoping to deliver that to female entrepreneurs and customers going forward. So, hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a summary as to how we've been thinking about gender lens at HSBC, the types of things we're doing. But look, I will say this is just the beginning, and there's of course way more that we can continue to be doing as well. And we very much look forward to doing that.
Thank you, Anushka. I always feel incredibly proud when I hear about all the things going on in the world. And obviously you mentioned about the Accelerating Women Entrepreneurs Program. I must say that with partners like Caspian Red, Wiki, Startup India, we have been able to make a remarkable difference in the access to capital, in the networking opportunities, in the know-how, etc. For the cohort that joined us. We got about 550 women entrepreneurs apply to this program. So there is a lot that we can do. And I love the way that Anushka defined it. And I think gender lens finance is also a term that she chose for the initiatives that are going on globally. That is to put a gender lens on each of the financial and business decisions that corporates and institutions and VCs and debt houses take. If we are able to do that, I'm sure we will move forward significantly and with pace. It was so fantastic to hear all your views and so much passion and energy in this discussion today. I would also like to open it up now to the audience to ask you some questions they might have. So over to the audience to please ask your question. I must say that I do not have chat facility on the equipment that I am on. So if you do have any question, please ask it to the panelist.
They may not have unmute facility. I think only the host can tell us probably in the Zoom webinar.
All right. Shinjini, are you on there? Hi, Shinjini, do we have you? I'm so sorry. So while we are getting the question and Shinjini to unmute the participants, maybe I might want to ask each of you that if there is a pledge that you would like to take to work even more further towards this cause that we are talking about, what is it that you would continue to do or do differently going forward? Anyone can take this.
I think there's an important requirement is the policies. I think there's a huge requirement to make policies which are more women friendly, just not as entrepreneurship, but I think in terms of building infrastructure, providing basic facilities. I must thank HSBC, listening to Anushka that there's so much HSBC is doing for women entrepreneurship. I wish, this was available all across all the banks and it was so easy for women to actually do business like naturally as anyone. And I would say that we require people at the policy level who can actually bring in a change in the infrastructure, basic facilities, and ease of doing business. Whether it is men or women is not the question, but just the ease of doing business, which makes it more versatile for people to actually take up this task.
Usha, on the policy part, I don't know, Anushka, whether you are aware, 2 years ago, our Women and Child Minister declared that there should be 6-month maternity leave for women. So
Correct.
Overall, but no provision for any paternity leave.
Exactly. So you need paternity, it has to be equitable.
Equitable.
Otherwise,
And then she made a statement publicly that, men are anyway going to relax and do nothing. So no paternity leave for them.
So that's where education is required,
exactly.
to educate the men.
So what this did was, so like Usha said, our workforce participation is very low, 23%. Okay. And we are right in the league of countries like Afghanistan and other, okay, really in the bottom 5 in terms of this. And this reduced further because startups who are bootstrapped do not want to get in women who will go off for 6 months,
Exactly.
They want women who will be committed. So you are actually not, if it was equitably available for both of them, then a startup founder will not hesitate. Correct. Because he knows that his male colleague can equally take 3 months off. So I think one policy level that is a very...
Yeah, so exactly from that point of view, if it is not equitable, then you're creating more bias actually.
More
and so
bias.
Actually defeating the whole purpose.
Yeah, and particular age group will completely lose out on
lose out on that, yeah. And so also if you're putting in a policy of maternity leave, then there should be some subsidy for even the businesses who can actually,
businesses.
Otherwise,
Exactly.
it's not really going to work.
Nobody's going to work.
So the policies have to actually understand the problem deep down, rather than just make a policy. And
make
I
a
think
policy.
Is where I came saying that you need people with a lot of know-how in terms of what actual ground level problems are when you make a policy, and to then debate on it and see what the impacts are going to be.
Exactly. So instead of celebration, it turned out to be really opposite for women, in terms of
it's become much
very,
more
very difficult.
defeating.
And if you see, many startup founders are actually part of earlier startups, right?
Yeah.
Because they've seen experience and they come out and start. So then women, if they're not taken in a startup, what chance do they have to found their own companies? So you're starting there itself, the gaps. So I think that's fun.
So like to get a job, they say you need to have experience, but if you don't give a job at all, when you get an experience? So I think it's like the chicken and the egg story, and you just keep going around the same.
I know. So I think, so this is definitely the policies. But the second thing I want to really pledge is understanding of gender lens and understanding of equity. That should be common across, and not only for women. See, it's about women, and it's only women talking about it. We need to co-opt men also. Exactly. And so that would be my pledge, to make this gender lens across, irrespective of
it has inclusive.
Who is an entrepreneur, whether it's male, female, whoever, they all need to. That would be
very well.
Sorry, I took up a lot of time.
So, Ragini, you were right. We actually did have some question on chat, which the administrator has actually sent me on my WhatsApp. So I will read that out.
Sure, do.
We have one question from Mona Quatra. The question is to Usha. So, Usha, are there any sectors or areas that are today's sunrise sectors that you feel women should consider from an impact perspective?
There are many. If you talk about impact, there are a lot of areas where we see the WHO sustainability goals. And I think once you register in the Startup India program, you'll see what are the kind of subsidies and incentives that the government is giving. So those are the areas which the environment has become a very, very essential area. The ESG that we talk about, the social sector is really thriving today. Education is, I think, going to be forever alive, where we see the changes in terms of digitization. Digitization, we are seeing, is really going to change the entire business and livelihoods of people. So I think that is one of the areas that women can and easily actually enter into. I think Amazon with their AWS services are now promoting women entrepreneurship in terms of giving them free training programs on the segment. So I think those are the areas. And of course, there is today, if you see, I think any area that you think that there is a gap is an area where you can actually grow.
Thank you, Usha. We do have one more question from Anu. She wants to ask to Ragini that debt, it's more like a food for thought. She says that debt is equal to non-diluted capital. So are debt funds the solution for this, to get more non-dilutive capital?
Definitely, debt is a solution. So normally it is understood that debt is expensive because you're paying interest. And equity, we don't need to return back, but actually equity is more expensive if your business becomes, successful. It's a non-dilutive capital, but one caution here is use of debt capital. So equity should be used for long-term things like product development, research, when you're figuring out product market fit. But when your product is market ready and you have revenues, that is when you should consider non-dilutive capital to be able to up inventories. So you should not use debt for, let's say, doing a research development or entering into a new market. Sorry, my internet is not behaving well. I'll just stop my video. And I don't know, was I clear, Shweta? Did it make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, for most part of it, Ragini, we just lost you in the last
Yeah.
5-10 seconds, but we could get
Yeah.
the gist of what you said.
Yeah. So use non-dilutive capital for uses such as working capital and short-term uses. For long-term and riskier uses, use equity.
Fantastic. Thank you for the guidance. So we do not have any further questions from the audience. With that, I would like to just check if there are any final thoughts to add on this topic.
Shweta, we want to hear your story.
Well, my story might not be very relevant for this forum. I'm not an entrepreneur per se, but I'm definitely very, very entrepreneurial at heart, I would say. That I treat my job as my own intrapreneur. I would say I always call myself intrapreneur. So from the age of 16, I've not borrowed a penny from anyone. I am also a second child like you, Ragini, and financially we were quite strained. So the most that I could make of my education was to do a chartered accountancy, which was very inexpensive at that time. But obviously I was also very interested in finance. So I had to go through a lot of initial struggles. And I also belong to a Marwari community, which if you belong to or you know, would know that is quite conservative. So I did have to work very hard to make a case to study and have that higher education, to leave the city, not for marriage, but for a job. And then finally to leave the country and go to US at the age of 22. So all of it was such a struggle that I thought that maybe the future generation should not struggle so much for any of these opportunities. And hence I've invested myself to bringing about more balance in every way. I have worked internally on gender initiatives in the bank for almost 10 years. And after doing that for 10 years, I realized that HSBC is already very progressed and thinking very autonomously about gender challenges, issues, and it's now being driven top down. So my efforts were not adding a lot of very incremental value. And I'm very glad that it wasn't, because we are already there in terms of how it is built in as a part of the conversation. So further on from there, I wanted to impact some of the other communities which might be perhaps, I wouldn't say underserved, but where we still need to make some advancements. And I thought, what better than women entrepreneurs? So last I joined the Women Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, curated a accelerator program, Accelerating Women Entrepreneurs. Spoke to you, spoke to Startup India, HSBC, got everyone on board. And since then, I feel so passionate about this whole journey. I really feel that the challenges are very real, and we all have to commit ourselves to move the dial and move forward. Thank you everyone. It was such a fantastic conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed all the different perspectives. Thank you for joining us today. I will pass it back to Shinjini. She did ask me to leave about 10 minutes towards the end of the session. So Shinjini, back to you.
Thanks, Shweta.
I'm not sure. Let me call her probably. I'm not sure, but looks like they might be caught up with organizing for the next session. So we will close it here today. And once again, thanks a lot. 19 November is actually recognized as the Women Entrepreneurship Day. I didn't know this until a while back, but I really think that women need to be celebrated, appreciated, and supported every single day, and not just one day. So with that note, I would say once again, thank you for doing so much for the women entrepreneurs and for sharing your thoughts and perspectives today.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Ragini.
Shweta.
Thank you.
Shweta.
Thanks, Ragini. Thanks,
Anushka, it's
Shweta.
been wonderful
Nice meeting
to
you.
be with all of you all.
Likewise.
Lovely to see you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Hello, Abisola.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, I am good and such a privilege to have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's such a
Yes,
privilege to be
I
here.
was waiting for a while, so I was just checking out the other windows and wondering about you. I didn't realize you were in. So were you waiting for a long time?
I was there for about 10 minutes or so. And I thought, okay, is it my internet? Is there a problem? And then I realized I just wasn't let in yet. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I think it was the waiting room issue or something like that. But so glad to have you.
Probably.
So glad to meet
Yes.
you.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So we are already live on social media. So let me, without any loss of time, get straight to your introduction and also to congratulate you on the award. So first on your introduction, Abisola, she is the co-founder of Agnes. She is from Nigeria. And today at the annual Women Economic Forum 2021, she will be conferred upon the award of the Exceptional Leader of Excellence. So I'm so proud to meet you. I am so sure that you are creating such an impact with your work, and the stage is all yours. The topic for today for you would be the rise of intelligent technologies. And this, of course, gets a whole lot of meaning, especially now over the last 18 to 20 months, we have seen a revolution, and we look forward to hear more from you. Abisola, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sinjini. I really appreciate the opportunity and thank you for the award. What an honor. But without further ado, so I'm Abisola and I'm an engineer and I'm a mother of two. And just a little bit about me before I talk more about intelligent systems and the impact that it can have. A few years ago, when I had my child, she couldn't breathe, and it was the longest week of my life. I thought I was going to lose her. But in that week, thankfully, she made it. But in the same week, a friend of mine whose child presented the same symptoms died. And that just sent me down a spiral because that could have been me. And because I have a background in engineering, most of my career spent at Medtronic, which is one of the largest medical device companies in the US. I started looking for ways that technology could solve maternal health problems and also neonatal health problems, because I don't know if people know this, but over 2 million babies die every year around the world. Close to 50% of those babies are dying in Africa. Actually, a lot of African countries and India share a lot of the burden for maternal death and neonatal death around the world. So I made it my mission to see how we could use technology to solve this problem. And today it's so apt that I'm talking about the rise of intelligent systems, because as we've seen over the past 18 months, technology, artificial intelligence has really become the fore of how we communicate, how we transport, how we make payments. It's really transforming our realities today and even into the future. And the question is, how can we use all this advancement in technology to solve some of the toughest problems that we have at scale, especially for people who may not have as much access to technology, or who may live in rural areas. And so today I'm going to share a little bit about what we've done at Agnes Health and how we are using technology and how we see technology and intelligent systems playing a role in solving some of the toughest problems we have, such as health disparities. So as I researched the issue of maternal death in Africa, one thing that I noticed was, for example, in Nigeria, which has the second highest rate of maternal and neonatal deaths in the world, is that only 33% of women in Nigeria choose to have their baby in a clinic. So just hold on to that thought. And then as you research more about maternal deaths around the world, you find that if a woman is not attended to by a trained birth attendant, whether at home or in a clinic, if she has any complications, she's not able to get the support she needs, and she faces a higher probability of dying during the delivery. So then my team and I posed the question, how do we get more women to either demand for or desire to have a trained birth attendant at their delivery? And how can technology help support this? And so what we realized is that many of these women, on talking to them, that many of them did not know how to navigate the health system. Many of them did not even know how to what to do if they were pregnant. They didn't realize that they had to sign up for antenatal care. So we thought, why don't we educate them and help them understand the need for it? So we first did this without technology, and we realized that the women started to show more interest. And we first actually, then we went and built an app that delivered health education in their native languages, because we realized that language can be a barrier. A lot of the technology and the apps that we use today are written in English. There's a big assumption that most of the users are able to read. However, almost 67% of the women in Africa are not literate. So we created a solution that uses audio technology to provide health education based on the stage of pregnancy that a woman is. Leveraging artificial intelligence, this means that that every woman gets just the right amount of education she needs about her particular week of pregnancy that she can apply in that moment. In addition, she has 24/7 access to reach a midwife. As today, she's reaching actual midwives 24/7. But with artificial intelligence in the future, we'll be able to triage her issues instantly without even having to wait to get on a call with a midwife. And that could potentially increase our scale. So with these little improvements, with this evolution of technology, we're able to apply them to really help these women. And so what's been the impact so far? In the past year, we've supported over 1,000 women in close to 60 communities. And we've seen that on Agnes, when they're supported by Agnes, they're 4 times more likely to survive the pregnancy and postnatal period than without Agnes. And their babies are 30 times more likely to survive the newborn period, which is the first month post-birth. And so we just found that we're just applying these intelligent systems of knowing what kind of education to supply to a woman based on where she is in pregnancy, we were able to make such a difference in their lives. So I know that there's a lot of concern around so much technology and privacy. And as long as we make sure that we're using technology for good and we're protecting the people that we serve, I put it to you that these intelligent systems can really help solve some of the toughest problems we face in the world. And people ask, why does maternal mortality matter so much? According to a study conducted by Harvard, if a woman dies during pregnancy, her family is more likely to spend another cycle in poverty. So this means that if we keep our mothers alive, then they have a better chance of being able to contribute to the education of their children and to be able to provide for the upkeep of the child, which then gives them a better chance of coming out of poverty. So these problems are intersectional and multi-sectoral in nature. And with technology and intelligent systems, we can really make a difference. So far with Agnes, yes, I just said we've supported over 1,000 women. Over the next year, we plan to reach 200,000 women, and we will be raising about $1 million over the next 12 months to be able to make that happen. So yes, with that, that is how we see technology and intelligent systems really making a difference in maternal health, and not only in maternal health, right? Today, we're able to make payments without making contact. We're able, especially now when you have so many diseases out there, there's COVID-19 and we don't know what's around the corner in the future. And with technology, we're able to continue working. We're able to keep being productive in spite of all these things that are happening in our world today. So it's important that as women, we embrace technology. We understand how it can make a difference in our lives and in the lives of our communities and those we hope to impact, so that we can truly make a difference. And we all know that when women engage with a new way of doing things, we're truly able to make a difference. It's especially in technology that tends to be so male dominated. This for me is a call to all women out there to open up their minds to being able to apply intelligent systems to whatever solutions they have for the world.
Thank you so much for that very inspiring and very insightful talk. And especially as you talk about technology, medical science and women, I believe that there's so much to dig. Even staying up and talking about it the whole night wouldn't be enough. Women have been systematically been not considered in design, in technology, and
Correct.
especially as you bring in
Correct.
the question of maternity and maternal health and postpartum, prepartum, and newborn neonatal health. So thank you personally from a mom to a mom for bringing that very important issue on the center stage. Yeah. So I really admire what you just said. I would check up your work. I would love to know more about how and what you do with. Let's connect on LinkedIn, and
I would love to connect.
Absolutely. Sure. And here's one more time a big hand to you for winning the award and for bringing the very, very important topic of maternal health on the table for the annual Women Economic Forum 2021. Thank you, Abisola. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for the award. I'm so honored. I'm so honored. This is amazing.
My pleasure. My pleasure. What you say, you know, links to all of us, and it is such a harsh reality that our biology has not been taken care of to create everything that we have to use at the end of the day.
So it's important that women participate because, for example, the other day I was talking to some policy leaders and I found out that a lot of, even in the pharmaceutical industry, a lot of drugs and a lot of prescriptions are actually on the basis of men, and then they're just adapted or adjusted for women, but not necessarily tested for the efficacy on women. So it's important that we are part of the table and part of the conversation so that we can shape care.
Absolutely so. And thank you for saying that up and aloud, and how important it is going to be for the future of SDG 5.5 to be and to have women on the table to make these decisions, the design, the policies, and the everyday talk on such an important and relevant topic for today. I'm so excited to hear you more on that. Most welcome.
I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
This is from Nigeria.
Absolutely, our pleasure. So a very warm welcome to you. We are already live on social media and we are here to celebrate you and your work. And a big hand to you for also getting awarded on the annual Women Economic Forum with the award.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be announcing this, to be awarded for the Exceptional Leader of Excellence by the annual Women Economic Forum 2021. And you are going to talk on engaging local communities to build global businesses. Something that we have all seen. We have all been locked in home, but we have all been able to reach out globally like we are doing right now. And the possibilities are endless. This is a bus women cannot afford to miss. And we cannot have, we cannot wait any longer to hear from you.
Thank you. Okay, so the floor is mine, right?
Absolutely, the floor is yours, and the next 10 minutes belong to you. Please let us know more about your work and how we can leverage the local for the global.
Wow, thank you very much. Wow, okay, my topic is engaging local communities and building global business. My name is Temiloluwa Additional. I'm a Nigerian. I'm also the lead learning officer at Readland and the co-founder of Readland. In July 2016, sometime that was like 5 years ago, I had deeper understanding about life. And something kept telling me that life was deeper than the path I was taking. And I wanted something more, which was a big challenge. And I went now back into my mind. And this is what happened. Something wonderful happened, but everyone will say, oh, my life changed. But for me, it was a path that I knew that I would take for the rest of my life that I found. I had a dream sometime when I was in 400 level in the university that I saw children on the dustbin. And like many of them, like 10 of them held onto my skirts and they were asking for help. I didn't know what to do. I felt it was a taboo to be on a dumpster, a very big dumpster, a huge one as at that. I tried to run away from these children, and the more I ran away from them, I saw that there were millions. I mean millions, and they made a long line, and they were holding onto my skirts and crying. They were crying, they were dirty, they were tattered, they were asking for help. And my life went away from that part because I didn't understand what the dream was going to be and how. I didn't understand. I didn't have the full understanding of it. So it was at this point in my life 5 years ago, I began to think of a bigger perspective of what life was going to be. And at that point in time, I had that voice telling me to go back to that dream and explore and do something divine about my life. So what did I do? I resigned from a well-paid teaching job, which was in a private business. And it was in an international school to start what is called Read Land today. And it was soul searching for me because I started with 0 naira. I didn't have any funds. And what did I do? I called my family together. We removed all the SETI, all the things we had in our sitting room, and went after the out-of-school children in Agege community in Nigeria. If you know Agege community in Nigeria, you know you have succulent ewa going. That's the beans. There's tasty beans, peppery beans, and you have this succulent Agege bread. That's where it's sold. And then it's a place where only artisans, local people, local traders live. Now, what was prevalent in that environment at that time was that children that were going to school could not read, and children, some were even out of school and they were selling. So Readland started from my sitting room with 0 naira. All I did was all the books I had accumulated for my children over the years. I have 3 children, and all the books I had accumulated in my pursuit of my career. I packed them all out, and we said we got 46 out of school children into the sitting room, and we began to read to them. Now something began to happen. It was like magic. It was hard at the beginning, and so this is what happened. It was in this undeserved community that a change began to happen. I saw that there was a particular knowledge that I gained over the years, over like 12 years as a teacher, that needed to enter this community. So every time walking on the dusty roads and dirty streets, I dreamt of a center, a learning center, a reading center where children will have a difference, and teenagers, their lives will make a difference, because what was happening in that community wasn't what was supposed to be. So this is what else we did. My family and I went around the community, as I said. We packed 46 children, showed up that first Saturday in the month of May. That was 5 years ago. And then before we knew it, the 46 children morphed into 200 children. So one person would say, oh, I went to somewhere, a sitting room, I went to somebody's house, they taught us to read. And so they began to gather themselves, and there were 200 children before we knew it in the community. And then our sitting room became the learning center. Remember, I started with 0 naira. I only started with the children's books I had at home at that time. And then before we knew it, we began to read every Saturday for 3 hours, and we began to gather them. Then this started a system of reading and feeding. So we'll read, we'll feed. And then we changed the moods of the environment with books. That was what we began to do. An explosion occurred at one point in time. There was a particular child that had been coming. He was diagnosed for autism, and he could not read. He wasn't talking. All of a sudden, I got a call from his teacher that day on a Monday, and she says, Mr. Adeshina, what did you do to this boy? Magic happened. He took a book and he began to read to the whole class. And she said, teach me the magic. Like magic, the word spread, and 200 children grew to 1,000 children. And I can tell you for free. At that point in time, we had a problem. Due to the residential apartment we were using, we were kicked out. And we had to get a field. Our word was, this was something I had found. It was life, it was me, it was purpose. And so we found a field and began to gather children from all over the public schools of Agege. And a company, Kellogg's Nigeria, began to feed these children for free. So every Saturday, the children come, they are volunteers, read to them. They began to learn out of school children. And then they grew and they continue to grow. Then early in 2019, I get a call from Her Excellency, the wife of the Vice President of Nigeria. She saw the book. I'd written a book. called Ban to the Big Fat Bully. There's a case of bullying now in Nigeria. And in 2018, we wrote the book and went on a campaign on all public schools. It was adopted by the Lagos State Public School in Nigeria for the official, as the official anti-bullying book in Lagos State in Nigeria. And so she saw the book in Paris, she saw the book in the UK, and she said, would you come on the bookshop project I have for communities? And that was how Readland began. Remember, I started with 0 naira and things began to happen. Parents began to say, pay, I want to pay for my children. I want to pay for your service. And services began. We had a reading package for children, parents were paying. The wife of the vice president said that Her Excellency Oludolapo Shibajo said, would you recruit all the librarians for me for my bookshelf project and then give me a list of books? So it was Readland that spearheaded all the books in all her community projects and all the centers she opened at that time. So instead of us only being one center, we had moved to like 10 centers by 2019. Wow. Then at this juncture, I want to sympathize with families that, lost their dear ones during the coronavirus, during the pandemic. Because something happened, pandemic started. We had options, no physical gatherings anymore. Yes, we had to diversify or die. We chose the former, to diversify, not to die. So this is what we did. We got devices for children in communities, a device, a laptop. We got laptops, we got data, we got modems for communities where children could gather in clusters with sanitizers, with face masks. This is what we began to do. We began virtual master classes. We taught foundational literacy, numeracy, coding, creative writing skills, public speaking skills. Wow. And then 2 African countries joined us. Ghana and Sierra Leone came on board. Children needed to learn during the pandemic. Parents began to enroll their children virtually in master classes. We recruited more instructors at Readland. Wow. And according to and then I can tell you now, many children have won awards from all these classes. The children won the robotics awards from the International Robotics Award that was showcased in this year, 2021, in Malaysia. Out of 24 countries, Nigeria came second. 2 children represented Readland, Nigeria from Readland, and they came second. And then the Union Bank Mobile Game Jam, which is another international mobile game jam in Nigeria, a 7-year-old child won 300,000 and won the prize for his category. Now, Akada Children Book Festival is an international festival in Nigeria, the only one we have in Africa. 2020, Readland, a child won the first prize as a Best Illustrator of the Year. And then this year, from Readland, we also have the Best Illustrator 2021 of the year. Now, in all the creative writing masterclasses, children have written and they have published books from these classes. This is a book written by a child, Shai Sharon, 10-year-old child. There are many books from children in all these classes. This is Miss Clean Issues. A child has written this. So we began to have children working on their skills, various skills. This is a child from Slovakia. Yes, and children doing amazing things in all these classes. Wow. According to the World Economic Forum, why are we running on this race of training children on their skills, foundational literacy as well? It's because by 2030, about a quarter of the world's population under the age of 25 will be living in and be coming from Africa. So there are economic prospects as well, not only of Africa, but of the world. And it depends on skills and capabilities and productivity of our youth. 2 lessons I have learned on this journey. From my sitting room with no kobo, starting with no dollars, no amount of money at all, is 2 lessons. I want you to know that on this journey of engaging local communities, now we have over 12 communities. You don't know all these places, but they are the rural and the undeserved communities in Nigeria. We have centers in over 12 communities already. Is first, you have to achieve a positive impact. you must genuinely be passionate about your cause. I left my teaching job and I didn't care. I wanted something divine, something that was life. I know if I die today, I have given back. Is you must be empathic and persistent. And there will be a lot of hurdles, but a genuine love for you to make a change, in case a genuine love for what you do will increase your brand awareness, establish a positive reputation, and grow your business. And secondly, the greatest resource required to make impact is not money, is not material needs, it's love. This is the greatest resource of your genuine love for whatever community you belong to. And that's the collective change, which will bring all the community's desires and your desires as well. Attraction.
Thank you so very much, Temilope. It was really a very inspiring speech, and indeed, your biggest resource is love. I take that away from your talk, and that is a precious reminder for each one of us, the most precious resource you have got in the face of hatred, in the face of any kind of antagonism. The only resource and the only powerful resource you have got is love. Thank you so very much.
$1 or rupee to change the world. You need love.
Yes, yes, absolutely so. The passion is visible, the love is palpable on your face, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to have you on Annual Women Economic Forum 2021. I once again congratulate you for the award you will be bestowed with. It will reach you over email soon, and it was a privilege to have you today. Let's stay in touch. Let's connect.
Did I get your name? Senguputa.
Sinjini Sengupta. Yes, yes.
Sengupta. Thank you.
My pleasure. And the very best to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We have your video, please. And your audio. And the people.
Now, can you hear me? Hi, Sandhya,
yes,
can you hear me?
Hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank God,
yes.
Sandhya, so much problem, yeah, for me.
We are live. So I think we should straight away go into my introduction of you and your book launch. So welcome to the Global Digital Annual Women Economic Forum 2021. It is my pleasure to invite you to launch or relaunch your book, Bhagavad Gita Ka Vigyan, a Hindi translation of Science of Bhagavad Gita written by Swami Virajeshwara Saraswati Hamsa.
Thank you so much.
A brief introduction of Bridge to Bridge Chopra is a, is a corporate executive, ex-corporate, former corporate executive, an author, a translator, a philanthropist, an environmentalist. I think that is in brief. So if I were to go on, it would be really long and take away from your session. So welcome once again. It is over to you. I will come back when you have 2 minutes to spare.
Great. Thank you very much, Sandhya, and hello to everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here and talk about this mammoth task of my book that I have done. Thank you very much. And this book, Science of Bhagavad Gita, written by Swami Virajeshwara Hansa, and the translation, Bhagavad Gita Ka Vigyan, they bring you the blessings of a scientist turned yogi. It is the interpretation and explanation of the Divine Master Lord Krishna's teaching by a realized master. How did a young, bright scientist become a yogi? A brief peep into the past. It is year 1970. A young, tall, bright scientist stood in his IBM office in New York, where he has been working for 10 long years in the R&D department, which he now heads as a manager. He has been contributing to the computer revolution that kicked off in the 60s in the US and was involved in the development of IBM 370 third generation computer. He stood there with his resignation in his hand. To the utter shock and surprise and a sense of loss of his boss, he just hands over the resignation. And the reason? He just writes one word, personal. But many years later, in his autobiography, A Scientist's Search for Truth, he elaborates the reason. He says, I was disenamored by science. And mind you, he was a PhD in polymer physics from Rutgers, New Jersey State University. And 10 years he had worked for IBM. And he said, I was disenamored by science because it could not answer some of my life's question. Who am I? Why am I here? What is this life all about? He tendered his resignation, returned to his home country, India, went to Rishikesh in the foothills of Himalayas, and under the guidance of his guru, Swami, Pujya Swami, like revered Guru, Vidyanandaji, he started his rigorous sadhana. Sadhana means deep study of scriptures, disciplined practice of the methods prescribed by the scriptures to experiment those theoretical concepts in the scriptures. To do what? To experience the truth in those philosophical concepts in himself. With his dedication, discipline, and concentration of a scientist, soon he attained the highest on the spiritual path. That is, he became a Brahma Jnani, the knower of self. He became a realized master. Then few years he spent in the Himalayas roaming around, meeting yogis and saints. Then he traveled all over India, going to all the holy cities and holy shrines. And finally, in 1995, he came down to Bangalore, found an ancient cave in Bannerghatta in Bangalore, and made that his abode. It was here in 1995 in Bangalore that I had the stroke of good luck to meet Swami Shri. It was really a fortunate turn of destiny for me. At that juncture in my life, I was just going to touch 40, which I at that time considered mid-years, but thanks to all, they still make me feel young. But that time, I thought it was mid-years, and with God's grace, I'd had a very comfortable life. I could be considered highly educated, successful professional, working in the Middle East, comfortable life. My husband was doing very well. And it was a life of luxury, traveling all over the world and all that. But like they say, abundance and deprivation both have the power to generate some kind of disenchantment. So I had started feeling the hollowness of this life. Why are we doing what we are doing as if on autopilot? The life is on autopilot. There has to be something more to life. What is the meaning of life? What are we? Why are we here? And this search and this quest for this search had taken me to join Self-Realization Fellowship, formed and founded by Yogananda Paramahansa, whose autobiography of a yogi many of you might have read. And I was initiated in a very advanced technique of meditation. So I was struggling to find meaning in life when I met Swamiji. It was like God's own blessing. I still remember my first meeting. It must have been an auspicious time. After that, I had 20 years of his grace and guidance. And he lived amazingly frugal and simple life, no coterie of bhaktas barricading him from newcomers. So he was very accessible. And he started educating me in scriptures by giving me the books that he had written, 2 of which I translated, Sadhana and Meditation, and Rebirth. I now think he was just preparing me for this mammoth, huge task of translating Bhagavad Gita, which was already translated in Japanese by one of his Japanese devotees. So this Gita, science of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita ka Vigyan is different because it has been interpreted by a scientist turned yogi. So here he takes a lot of material from the material sciences to explain various shlokas, and he connects easily to the young, scientifically oriented minds who need answers for every query rationally and logically. So he tells them that the same laws that work in nature work on us, within and outside our life. But he gradually and smoothly takes them to the higher dimension of life. Human life has two aspects, and for that matter, all life. One is gross, that can be seen, perceived by senses, and the other is subtle, cannot be perceived, cannot be defined, cannot be seen. But that's the more powerful dimension. It has the control over the gross aspect, and it has the power to create the gross aspect. He leads them to that gradually, and he tells them that this subtle aspect cannot be experimented in your physical labs. So this is something unique about this Bhagavad Gita. Now, coming to the translation of this Bhagavad Gita, it has been like a blessing, very overwhelming, very shocking. There is so much of new knowledge in this scripture that one has never been exposed. It is one composite whole knowledge of the absolute, of the higher dimension of life. Lord in Gita says, Arjuna, I'm going to tell you that secret knowledge, knowing which you need not know anything else, because you will automatically know everything else, because everything is inherent in it. So it is that knowledge. But that knowledge is not easy to come. And for that is what we call sadhana, which is the training and purifying of your mind and your senses. And another shocker that it gives you says, Krishna tells Arjuna, thou art immortal, O man, realize this. He says the very core of our being is indestructible. It is immortal. It lives forever. When that subtle part, which is consciousness, Chaitna, leaves this gross body, it takes with it something very special, which is you, whether it's your desires or your inclinations or your impressions that you've carried with it. So you still remain, the body may perish. So this, and he says it so convincingly, and Swami Shri explains it so scientifically. He says every atom, molecule, electron, proton, they work under the same laws. And that all is the gross aspect. And it all comes from the subtle aspect. So this is another. And another thing that he just declares, he says, remember, the cause of all your dukkha, all your misery, all your suffering in human life is your ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of who you really are. Because you just identify with this gross body of yours, this 5 or 5.5 feet body-mind complex, or the gross world around it, and you forget who you really are, the powerful being that is your core being. And the part of that creating force is within you. You just have to know that. Once you know, the antidote of all your suffering is that knowledge, that gyan, the knowledge of self. Gyan actually is not translated into English as knowledge, but that knowledge of the self, that special knowledge, the higher knowledge. Once you know who you are, your suffering comes to an end. But he says, mind and your senses are the instruments that play according to your ignorance or your knowledge. But to attain that higher knowledge, you have to learn to train your mind. Before training, purify your mind, purify your senses. And then he also tells you something. These are so fascinating aspects of our being that we never, we never know. That, remember, this subtle dimension is the creative power, which has created this whole cosmos. And remember, the part of that creative force is with you. Once you realize that, you accept that, and you seek the help from that, you surrender to that, all your miseries will go, all your work will be done, you will float through life so easily. It is only when we just get mired into what the eyes can see, what the senses can perceive, that we don't know what the direction is, what the goal is. Nobody ever thinks, what's the goal of my life? When we go to the university, the goal is to get the degree. Come out, goal is to get the job. You got job, you got good family, you got good living. Then what? What is your goal? He says the goal of life is to understand yourself, to know yourself, what you are, and enjoy that power. This is the highest end of the Gyan in Bhagavad Gita. But having known that Gyan, you will be able to manage better your mind, your body, your thoughts, your desires. That is why this Gyan is so important. So this book has been such a fascinating experience for me to translate, that many times I would just leave the pen and sit down and really wonder, what are we doing? I mean, this scripture is with us for centuries and we are not taking advantage. We are not reading, and then some people say, that's okay, but this is not okay. But the Guru says, if you accept Gita, you can't accept it in parts. Accept it in full. How can you decide this is correct and this is not correct? So, to sum it up, I will say in Tagore's words, like he says in Gitanjali, one of the poems, at the touch of thy immortal hands, my little heart loses its limits in joy. To me, Bhagavad Gita is that immortal divine touch, which is panacea of all your ills. So that's what I'll say. You see, you can't do justice in few minutes to Gita. It's just an appetizer and teaser that I have given you. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is.
And that's really making me rather hungry, all that appetizer and teaser. You sounded so passionate and like you've been soaked in it. You could make out that you were so immersed in the whole process of what you call this mammoth task. It's really privilege to listen to you and listen to the whole journey. It was so fascinating.
2 years. It took me 2 years. So, you know how I'm soaked into it.
Yes. So again, and so it is again a privilege for the Women Economic Forum to have you here and confer on Mrs. Brij Chopra, the exceptional leader of excellence. Thank you once again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for making me feel young again and inspiring me to come to my full potential. Thank you very much, and thank you.
You know that song, right? O meri zohar azbi, tujhe मालूम नहीं, अभी तक हंसी और मैं जवां. Yeah, So yes, thank you so much and good night.
Good night, Sandhya. Thank you very much. God bless.
may I request you to unmute yourself and switch on your camera? Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Global Digital Annual Women Economic Forum
Thank
2021.
you. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
It is lovely to see you and lovely to see all those beautiful creations of yours.
Oh, thank you so much.
Audience out there, Ejiro is the CEO of Ejiro Amos Tefiri. Did I get that right?
Yes, good job. Yes, you did.
Thank you. And she's going to speak on creativity has no boundaries. Ejiro is a fashion designer, and I think it's such an apt topic for her to talk on. But before I hand it over to you, Ejiro, I take privilege. It is my privilege to announce the prestigious WEF award that is being conferred on you, the Exceptional Leader Excellence. So,
thank you so much. Thank
congratulations, and it is over to you. You will get, I think, almost 13 minutes to talk. And at the end of your time, which is 9:50, 9:45, it will get automatically cut. So,
okay.
So it's over
Thank
to
you
you.
so
Please carry
much.
on. I will be here listening to you. Carry on.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be part of this forum today, the Women Economic Forum. And welcome to my session, Creativity Has No Boundaries. What is creativity, you may say? Creativity is the use of imagination, original ideas to create something, inventiveness. I would like to also say creativity is innovation, and innovation, creativity equals innovation, and this drives our world and the evolution of the world that we actually live in. So my name is Ejiro Emostapri. I'm the founder of the women's wear brand and fashion company, Ejiro Emostapri. We've been 11 years in business, and it's such an honor to be here. So quickly into why I chose the topic creativity has no boundaries. I like to say creativity is not only something that is the preserve of the creatives, as we like to call it. You know, when people are artists or musicians, writers, they say it's creative. But I think everyone in this line could be creative because we emerge from the ultimate supreme being God, who is the most creative person of all. I mean, look from one person to the other, we are not exactly the same. And something as simple as our thumbprint is unique to each individual, and our DNA is also unique. So that tells you the depth and the diversity of what creativity could be. Creativity is just the audacity to think different, to view something from a different lens. I mean, we all probably like to see things the same way. Or, you know, when we're growing up as children, we come into this world, we don't even have stereotypes. But when we start to grow, our cultures, the adults around us, our parents, society start to give us, this is how things are supposed to be. And that usually limits the way we see things or how experimental we go out to do things. And I'm here to just encourage somebody, especially in business as women, to dare to be different. We cannot go about growing our businesses the same way we maybe learned from every other person, because first of all, we are unique. We have our own unique superpowers as women. We can multitask, we can do so many things all at the same time. And we know how to think about things in layers, and that's like creativity. So I'm just going to share how that has helped me in building my own business and brand by sharing the Adrian Mustafiri story with you. So now, Adrian Mustafiri was birthed about 11 years ago. I was this wide-eyed, fresh graduate of very humble parents, civil servant parents. And back then, fashion designing, of owning a fashion brand, was the preserved exclusive of the children of the rich, so to speak, in my locale in Lagos in Nigeria. At least the kind of brand I wanted to have, that international brand, have that international presence, have a voice in the fashion industry, and to be a voice to be reckoned with. And you know, I had studied fashion in university, technical higher education, that's Yabatech. And then I had worked in the industry for about 3 years. And so I studied my environment, which is the first thing about creativity. You must know what's already on ground, what already obtains for you to even say you want to do something different. How is it? How does it exist? How is it currently being done? And so I already knew what was stacked up against me by doing my own SWOT analysis and what it would take for me to do my business. And how did I get through all of this? So I went ahead to say, what are my strengths? My technical skills. So I can actually design. I can make clothes pretty well, with very minimal resources. Having gone to an art school in Nigeria, that was one of the tasks we're always given. Do a lot with very little. So I was very comfortable with starting with almost nothing. So I had less than $100 in my account when I started my business, and I didn't even touch it. So I started my business with a bag full of scraps I had collected all through my university days, and then while I was working, and a sewing machine. I was my first staff. I was my first researcher. I was my first marketer. Everything. So I saved that money for eventualities. I didn't even use it. So I moved back home and I used my parents' resources. I used my bedroom and I used my parents' car. I turned my bedroom into my first office. So I would research by night, and by day I would produce garments, and in the evenings I will go market the clients. And within a month, I found avenues and outlets to exhibit my outfit. And instead of just going for this exhibition head on, I went to visit the exhibition stands first. I went for the event first to view the layout. And I saw whatever that person was doing. And I'm like, if I'm supposed to stand out, I don't have the luxury of time. I don't come from the same social class as these people. How am I going to make sure they notice me? So I studied all the kind of things they were doing, and boy, did I prepare to go to that exhibition. I brought out all the big guns. I went with a plasma screen. I went with a unique rack. I picked everything different from whatever the person was doing. So if they had black racks, I picked the silver rack. If they had wooden hangers, I picked silver hangers. And then I did my branding uniquely. I like I said, I did my SWOT analysis. So I had friends from art school who were graphic artists and all of that. So I leveraged on that. My branding was pretty unique. I had my website up and running. I had my every other thing regarding my brand there. And so that immediately I started setting up my stand, my booth was super unique and attractive. I even paid very early, so I picked a strategic position. So no one came into that place without noticing me. Guess what? At the end of that day, I had shared my business cards to the topmost stylists in the industry, and within a week, a picture of my garment was on the most beautiful girl of Nigeria's most beautiful girl. That's the girl that goes to represent us at Miss World, on the front cover of the biggest fashion magazine. Here I was, fresh out of a job, just 1 month, and then everyone would just see my driving through traffic, Omomi Akine Percy in Ejiro Mastafiri on the front cover. That literally changed my world and the trajectory of the growth of my company. And I didn't stop there. And so I just kept applying that same thought to everything. How do I get in their faces with minimal resources, using what I had, and not just throwing money at everything? Now, I wasn't doing paid ads because I didn't have it. But in this same magazine, people had paid hundreds of thousands of naira and millions to be inside this magazine. Here I was because I presented my brand really well on the front cover for free. And that went on and on. So packaging, branding, communication with people. And within a few more weeks, I was on 2 international stages. So we have Arise Fashion Week in Africa. I did Arise that same year. And there's also Origin Africa Showcase. They found my website online, USAID, and they invited me to represent Nigeria and Mauritius. And that just kicked off my international career. I dared to think differently. I dared to say, you know what? I know this is what it takes to own a fashion brand. You have all this money, you create this collection abroad, you print your fabrics, but I didn't have that. But I had technical skill, I had technical know-how, and I focused on that, and I honed that, and I leveraged on the fact that I had friends that were other artists, and I brought that into the space. Something else I also did was to really understand the Adrian Mustafiri woman. So I was targeting the right audience. I wasn't playing games. I wasn't really trying to dress my friends and just be pretty or just act out. I didn't even wear my pieces until 5 years down the line when I could afford to buy a car, because I knew my brand was for upwardly mobile women. So it was that intentional. How did I get my first store on the biggest high street in Nigeria, Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos? It was the audacity of faith and daring to do it differently. So I had traveled to London to represent Nigeria at the Olympics. So I always got all these represent Nigeria opportunities because I just did not think the way most designers would think. Oh, we have to go this way. And I'm like, no, there are so many opportunities. I worked with the Bank of Industry. I worked with every organization that there was set out to help creatives, British Council. So I never just stayed narrow. The thing is to grow certain things, you have to look at the wider basket and pick and make interesting decisions as you go along the way, which is what I did. And I apply creativity to that. Okay, if I work with this brand or if I work on this platform, how does it portray my brand? It's opportunity cost. And that's creative thinking. You have to know why you're doing this at this particular point in time and why you're doing that and not doing this. And that, I would say, is the secret behind the growth of AWEF Staffery. And like I said, think differently. Like Nigerians are Anglophone and we like to, we are like within ourselves. If we want to do shows, it's just within Nigeria, or we go to Ghana. No, I did different. I went to almost every Francophone country, so I reached out to them, I became friends with them. So I did all their fashion weeks, networked with the different creatives there, got to have friends, and started having customers from those places. So to Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Dakar, Senegal, I have network, I have people, I have the creative industry and myself were connected, and then I also have clients from those places. I was even supposed to be at the show. I'm supposed to be speaking from Guinea right now, but I couldn't travel because unfortunately I got tested for COVID and it came up positive. But hey, here I am, we move. So even with like growing my team, also interestingly, I had to think about it creatively. What about it? I mean, I don't have that. Thank you so much. Thank you. I had to get out of bed like a few minutes ago to jump up and get ready to get here. But I'm here anyway, and so I'm happy to be here.
I know. We were told you were not well. And so we are
Yes.
doubly happy that you're here today. And your story is very inspiring. Go on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sadia. Okay, so as I was saying, even with my team, I knew I couldn't afford the level of technical know-how I needed to get the quality of clothes I wanted out of my small production hub. What did I do? I took people who had no training, who had no hope, who could barely finish high school, and I taught them. I'm like, hey, guess what? I paid all this money to get this technical higher education. I'll teach you for free. Just come work with me. Let's build something. You know what? People abroad, people everywhere else, they have heads like us. They have brains like we do. We can do this. And then we out of our little tiny rural area, we did reach every part of the world. I'm like, guys, if we can travel, if we can get on a plane physically, let the work of our hands travel. And so that's creative thinking, and that's doing things. But these people took it upon themselves. I'm like, when you go to the mall just to stroll, you want to see women wearing the clothes that you sewed by the work of your hands, and then you say, oh, I made this dress and I remember what happened. And by doing that, we're able to build a team, build this amazing brand. And AWEF Staffery story today, we've grown to become one of Africa's topmost brands. Oh, okay, I'll be quick. One of Africa's topmost brands. We are in several stores. We've grown to have 3 of our own stores. We have a training school. We have over 50 proteges running their own brand. So what am I saying here? What am I giving you to take away? Know your SWOT. Think differently. Plot the graph of where you are now to where you want to go. 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, and then apply. Create your own roadmap to these places. Do not go the way everyone else before you has gone. I mean, if you have the same SWOT analysis, strength and weakness as the person you are trying to follow, probably. But I believe in individuality and I believe in uniqueness. And I know that if you think creatively and think differently about different things, then you'll be able to achieve your dreams. So please go today, know your dream, articulate it, know yourself, and know how you want to get there, and be given to give of yourself to get to where you need to go. Sacrifice, work hard, work smart, network, and achieve your dreams. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you very much.
That was truly, truly inspirational. I can't wait for tomorrow to go and work hard and reach my dreams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And get
Thank you,
well.
Sadia. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you so much. Thank you, WEF team. I look forward to the days when we don't have COVID and we can actually meet in person, and share hugs and all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Did I do okay? Hope I didn't go rambling too much.
Very good.